Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're diving into something that's pretty important to a lot of folks, I think, especially as we think about the future,
Absolutely.
is this idea of aging in place,
Yeah.
right? How can we make it possible, not just possible, but like really enjoyable to stay in our homes as we get older?
And it's a growing trend.
It is huge.
And it's got its own challenges.
It does. So we've got some fascinating information here on a system called Livindi, and it seems like they're really trying to tackle some of these challenges head on. What's interesting to me, and I'd love to get your take on this, is that it doesn't seem to be just about safety and security, which are obviously important,
Right.
but they're also talking about staying connected, staying healthy, really kind of like thriving.
What's really intriguing is that they're going beyond just, that traditional panic button approach. It's almost like they're trying to create this whole ecosystem of support around the person aging in place.
Exactly. I think that's a great way to put it. Aging in place, which lays out some really key concerns. And then we've got the Livindi website itself, which is, full of all the details on the system. But before we even get into the nitty-gritty, I think it's important to understand the landscape right. Like, why is this such a big deal, and what are we actually up against?
Yeah, absolutely. I think framing this is really important. They lay out 7 key concerns when it comes to aging in place.
7. Wow. Okay, so this is serious business. We're not just talking about, making sure the house is tidy.
No. This is about some really fundamental aspects of well-being.
Okay, well, let's hear it. What's number 1 on the list?
Well, the first one they highlight is fall risks, which, makes perfect sense, right? It's a huge worry for older adults and their families.
Yeah, I can see that. My grandmother actually, she took a pretty bad fall a few years back, and it really just kind of took a toll.
And it's so common, unfortunately, and it can be so debilitating, too. So addressing that risk is really paramount.
Okay, so fall risks. That's number 1. What else is on their radar?
Number 2 is social isolation. And I think this is one that sometimes gets overlooked, but it's so important. As people age, they might become less mobile, they might lose friends or family members. It's easy to become isolated.
It's true. I hadn't really thought about that as much, but yeah, it makes sense. And especially if you're dealing with health issues on top of that.
Right, exactly. And what's really striking is that according to the NIH, 85% of Americans over 65 have at least one chronic condition.
Wow, 85%. That's a lot of people.
It is. So they may need more support, but they're less likely to reach out for it if they're isolated.
That's a really good point. Okay, so we've got fall risks, social isolation. What's next?
Medication management.
Oh, gosh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I can barely keep track of my own pills, and I only take like 2 a day.
Right. Imagine having to manage multiple prescriptions, dosages, potential interactions. It's a recipe for errors, unfortunately.
And I imagine those errors can have some pretty serious consequences.
Absolutely. So having a system in place to help manage all that complexity, that can be really, really valuable.
Okay, medication management. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Emergency response.
Oh, yeah, of course. If something does happen, you need to be able to get help quickly.
Exactly. Especially if you live alone, every second counts in an emergency.
Yeah.
So having that reliable system to summon help, that's crucial.
Okay, number 5. What do we got?
Cognitive challenges.
Ah, yeah, that makes sense. Things like memory loss or confusion. I mean, that can make even simple tasks really difficult.
Absolutely. And it's such a sensitive area too, right? It's about finding that balance between providing support without taking away independence. You don't want to make someone feel like they're losing control.
You want to offer a helping hand, not like take over their life.
Exactly.
Okay, what's next on the list?
Telehealth ready.
Okay, so this is interesting. Being able to access healthcare remotely.
Yeah, it's becoming so important, right? With all the virtual appointments, remote monitoring, this could be a key factor in allowing older adults to stay in their homes comfortably.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Especially if getting out and about is difficult.
Right.
Okay, last but not least, what's number 7?
Self-management of chronic conditions.
This kind of ties back to that statistic we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
With so many people dealing with ongoing health issues.
Exactly. And those conditions often require, careful monitoring lifestyle changes, consistent communication with healthcare providers.
Wow.
So having a system that helps with all of that could make a big difference.
Okay, so we've got these 7 major concerns. Fall risks, social isolation, medication management, emergency response, cognitive challenges, telehealth readiness, and self-management of chronic conditions. That's a lot to tackle.
It is. It's a big picture.
It really is. But that's where Livindi comes in, right? This is where they're trying to step in and offer some solutions.
Right. And what's interesting is that they've actually gotten some pretty serious recognition. According to the National Council on Aging, the NCOA, they've ranked Livindi as the #1 most comprehensive monitoring system.
Wow. The NCOA. That's a pretty big deal, isn't it?
It is. The NCOA, they've been advocating for older adults and their families for, I think, over 70 years now.
Wow, 70 years.
They're known for their rigorous research, their commitment to, really promoting the well-being of seniors. So their endorsement carries weight.
Okay, so we've established that aging in place comes with some serious challenges and that Livindi, gotten some serious recognition. Now I'm really curious to see how this system actually addresses those concerns. Like, what are they doing that's so different?
Well, let's take a look. Their website seems to go into a lot of detail about their features and services.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with fall risks. That was #1 on a list. How are they approaching that? I saw on their website something about wearable call buttons and motion sensors.
Yeah, those are pretty standard features. You see those in a lot of safety systems. But what's interesting is that Livindi seems to go beyond just reacting to a fall. The motion sensors can actually detect changes in movement patterns that might indicate an increased risk.
Oh, so it's like an early warning system.
Exactly. It's about being proactive rather than just reactive.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then if a fall does occur, I saw that they have voice-activated emergency calling. So even if someone can't reach a button, they can still call for help.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Yeah.
Especially, if someone's injured or disoriented after a fall, that voice activation could be a lifesaver.
Okay, so they're thinking ahead. That's good. Now, what about social isolation? I saw something on their website about one-tap video calling.
Yeah, that's a great feature. It's so user-friendly. Imagine your mom, she's at home, she wants to connect with her grandkids or her friends or even her doctor. It's just one tap, and she's there. She's having a conversation.
So it's like bridging that distance without having to be a tech whiz.
Exactly. It's about making it easy and accessible.
Okay, what about medication management? How do they help with that?
Well, they have this portal where medical staff and family members can track prescriptions, monitor adherence, even get alerts if medications are missed. It's like having this digital safety net to make sure that those crucial meds are being taken as prescribed.
Okay, so that takes some of the pressure off of the person trying to remember everything themselves.
It does. And it also facilitates communication. Everyone involved in the older adults' care can be on the same page.
So it's not just about preventing errors, it's about coordinating care more effectively.
Exactly.
Okay, makes sense. Now, what about emergency response? We talked about the call button and the voice activation, but is there anything else?
Yeah, they go beyond just connecting the user with emergency services. The system also alerts the entire care team, family members, designated caregivers, healthcare providers. So there's this really coordinated response.
So it's not just about calling 911. It's about creating this whole support network that can be mobilized in an emergency.
Right. And speed is of the essence in an emergency, right? Livindi ensures that help is mobilized quickly and efficiently.
Okay, now let's talk about cognitive challenges.
Yeah.
I'm really curious how they handle this one. I saw on their website they were talking about monitoring tools that can provide, gentle oversight without taking away independence. But how does that actually work?
It's a tough balance, right? You want to provide support, but you don't want to be intrusive.
Right, you don't want to make someone feel like they're being watched all the time.
Exactly. So from what I'm seeing, Livindi seems to focus on offering these subtle reminders and prompts rather than completely taking over tasks. For example, instead of an alarm blaring, there might be a gentle reminder on the tablet screen about an upcoming appointment or something like that.
Okay, so it's more about nudging than controlling.
Yeah, it's about respecting autonomy.
I like that.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about telehealth readiness. We know Livindi's telehealth ready, but what does that actually mean for the user?
Well, it means the system is designed to work seamlessly with telehealth platforms. So, those virtual appointments, they can happen right at home using the Livindi tablet.
So no more, battling traffic or bad weather just to see a doctor?
Exactly. It just makes healthcare more accessible.
Okay, and then last but not least, self-management of chronic conditions. How do they help with that?
Well, they offer a whole range of, biometric devices, blood pressure monitors, smartwatches, weight scales. All of this can be integrated with the system.
So it's like having a virtual health coach right there in your home.
In a way, yeah. It allows people to really track their data and share it with their caregivers and doctors.
That's pretty impressive. But okay, here's my question. There are a lot of smart home devices out there, right? And a lot of health monitoring gadgets. What makes Livindi different?
That's a good question. And I think what sets Livindi apart is that it's not just about individual devices. It's about creating this holistic picture of the person's health and well-being. All of that data from the various devices is integrated into one platform, which can be accessed by the user and their care team.
So it's not just about collecting data. It's about using that data to inform care.
Precisely. It's about creating this connected ecosystem of support.
Okay, so we've kind of gone through how they address each of those 7 concerns. But, I'm noticing on their website, they go beyond just listing features. They also highlight different user groups. I'm seeing sections for spouses, caregivers, employers, even like discharge coordinators. Why so many different groups?
I think it really speaks to the fact that Livindi isn't just for the older adult living at home, it's for everyone involved in their care.
So it's recognizing that aging in place isn't just an individual journey, it's a collaborative effort.
Exactly. And by providing resources and support for all those different stakeholders, they're creating a much more comprehensive approach.
And speaking of comprehensive, they keep mentioning that NCOA #1 rating. What exactly did the NCOA base that on? What were they looking at?
I'm sure they had a very rigorous evaluation process. They probably looked at comprehensiveness of features, ease of use, affordability, customer satisfaction, all of that.
So it's not just about having a lot of bells and whistles. It's about how those features actually translate into real-world value.
Right. And the NCOA's endorsement suggests that Livindi is hitting the mark on those criteria.
Okay, now I'm looking at their website and I see they offer different packages. They have
Yeah.
the solo package, they have the max package. What are some of the key differences there? Like what would someone get with the max that they wouldn't get with the solo?
Well, the Max seems to be for those who want the most, robust monitoring and support. It includes things like 2 tablets, a bed sensor to track sleep patterns, a smartwatch. It's kind of the fully loaded version.
So it's like the catalog.
Yeah, exactly. The Solo, on the other hand, seems to focus more on communication and those basic safety features.
Okay, that makes sense. And then they also have the separate accessories. They have the smartwatch and the bed sensor. Are those like essential add-ons or more like nice to haves?
Well, I think it depends on the individual's needs and preferences. Sleep quality can be a really important indicator of overall health, especially for older adults.
Yeah, that's true. I know my sleep gets worse when I'm stressed or not feeling well.
Right. So the bed sensor could provide valuable data, both for the individual and their care team.
What about the smartwatch? Is that just about tracking steps or is there more to it?
It's tapping into that whole trend of wearable health tech, right? It can track activity levels, heart rate, sleep patterns. It can even detect falls.
Oh, wow. So it's not just a fitness tracker. It's a potential safety device as well.
Exactly. And for someone who's active and wants to maintain their independence, that could be a really valuable tool.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about those 7 key concerns that can make aging in place challenging and how Livindi's features are aiming to address those. We've even kind of dug into some of the finer points of what they offer, the different packages, the accessories, that NCOA rating. It seems like they're really trying to think of everything.
Yeah, they're definitely aiming for a comprehensive approach.
But speaking of comprehensive, I'm curious to hear what actual users are saying. Like, what are people's real-life experiences with this system?
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's head over to their website. They have a section for customer reviews, so we can get a sense of, what's working, what people are actually saying about Livindi.
Perfect. All right, let's dive into those testimonials.
Wow, some of these are really heartwarming.
Yeah, I'm seeing one here where someone's saying that the Livindi tablet literally saved their life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's because of the auto answer feature. They were able to connect with emergency services even though they couldn't physically reach the call button.
That's incredible. It really shows how this technology can be that crucial safety net, especially for people living alone.
Yeah, it's like peace of mind for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
And here's one from a daughter who says she loves being able to see her mom's activity throughout the day. Just knowing that her mom is safe and well, even when she can't be there in person.
That's so important, that sense of connection. It's not just about knowing that someone is physically safe, it's about that emotional reassurance, too.
Right. It's like you're still part of their lives, even when you're not physically present.
Exactly.
I'm seeing several comments here about the customer service. People are saying it's excellent, which is always a good sign.
It's easy to get caught up in the tech itself, but that human element is so important, especially for older adults. Things like ease of use, reliable support, even just enjoying those features like the digital picture frame we talked about.
Those little touches can make a big difference.
They really can. It's about creating a positive user experience.
Okay, here's a thought. With all this technology, is there a risk of becoming too reliant on these devices? Could it actually lead to less human interaction, not more?
That's a really valid concern. And it's something we need to be mindful of. I think the key is to remember that technology should be augmenting human connection, not replacing it. The ideal scenario is where Livindi is facilitating communication, providing that safety net. It's not replacing those face-to-face visits, those phone calls, that genuine human interaction.
Right, it's about finding that balance.
Exactly. And that balance might look different for each individual and family. It's about using technology in a way that supports their unique needs and preferences.
That makes sense. And speaking of individual needs, I'm struck by how Livindi seems to cater to such a wide range of situations. We've been talking a lot about people living alone, but what about couples who are aging together? Could this be beneficial for them as well?
Absolutely. Even if both partners are relatively healthy, they might benefit from that added security, peace of mind that a system like this provides. Features like medication reminders, health monitoring can be helpful for managing any health conditions that arise.
And I imagine the communication features could be really valuable too, especially if one partner starts to experience cognitive decline. It could help them stay connected and supported.
You're right. And it could also help alleviate some of the burden on the healthier partner who might be taking on more caregiving responsibilities.
So it's not just about individual well-being, it's about supporting the well-being of the whole household.
Exactly. Aging in place is often a shared experience. It involves the whole family, the whole support network.
Now, I remember you mentioned earlier that Livindi offers Medicare-covered virtual therapy sessions. That seems like a huge step towards making mental health care more accessible.
It is, and it's so important for older adults. They might face barriers to traditional therapy, transportation issues, stigma surrounding mental health. This removes some of those obstacles.
And it really speaks to that idea of aging in place being about more than just physical safety. It's about mental and emotional well-being too.
Exactly. It's about thriving, not just surviving.
And I imagine as technology keeps advancing, we're going to see even more innovative ways to support older adults in living those fulfilling lives at home.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time to be in this field. There's so much potential.
It makes you wonder, what will the future of aging in place look like? Will these kinds of systems become the norm?
It's a possibility. As the population ages and the demand for these in-home care solutions grows, I think we'll see more companies developing technologies like Livindi, but the key will be ensuring that they're affordable, accessible, and that they truly meet the needs of diverse populations.
Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Definitely not. It's about creating options and choices for people.
And I love how Livindi seems to be thinking about the whole person, the whole family. It's not just about keeping someone safe in their home. It's about creating an environment where they can thrive.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here today. We talked about those challenges of aging in place. We delved into Livindi's solutions. We even pondered the future a little bit. But I think it's safe to say that this is a topic that's only going to become more relevant as time goes on.
Absolutely. It's a conversation that we need to be having.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. If technology could grant you one wish for aging in place, what would it be? Would it be for yourself, a loved one, or maybe for society as a whole? Let us know in the comments.
It's a great question to ponder.
You know, we've been talking about all the high-tech stuff, but something that caught my eye on their website was actually pretty low-tech. It was the digital picture frame.
I think it speaks to something really important. You know, for older adults, those visual reminders of loved ones, happy memories, familiar places, that can be incredibly powerful.
It's really about that emotional well-being.
Absolutely. It's about those little things that can spark joy, you know, trigger a happy memory. It's about staying connected to the things that matter most.
And I bet it sparks conversations, too. Like if you're video chatting with your grandkids and a picture pops up, or if a caregiver's visiting and they see a photo, it's like, oh, remember that trip we took?
Exactly. It creates these opportunities for connection and reminiscing, which can be so valuable for older adults. It helps them stay engaged and connected to their own stories.
So we kind of zoom out a bit. What does this all mean? We've got this trend of aging in place. We've got all this incredible technology developing. Are we heading towards a future where home is basically this high-tech haven for older adults?
It's an interesting question. And I think the key is going to be finding that balance, right? We don't want to create a world where older adults are isolated in their homes, surrounded by gadgets, but lacking genuine human connection.
It shouldn't be about replacing human care with technology, but about finding ways to use technology to support and enhance that care.
I think that's what's so exciting about what we're seeing with companies like Livindi. They seem to be really trying to strike that balance. They're focusing on Both the high-tech and the high-touch aspect.
Right. They're not just about the data and the algorithms. They're also about the human experience.
Exactly.
Well, I think this has been a really fascinating deep dive. We've learned so much about the challenges of aging in place, but also about the incredible innovation that's happening in this space.
It's given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
And I think it's a conversation that we all need to be having, as we age and as our loved ones age. How can we create a future where aging in place is not just possible, but truly fulfilling?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of aging in place. And until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those deep dives going.